Is the Samsung Galaxy S9 worth buying in 2021? Well, in this video, we're gonna find out. Hey everybody, this is Andre here covering for Kevin on the Kevin Breeze channel, and today we're gonna be taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy S9. These days, you're able to find this phone unlocked for GSM carriers. For more information on price and availability, be sure to check the link in the description. Now, this phone was released in January of 2018, but what kind of value are we getting out of it today? Well, we're about to find out. Now, this phone has a 5.8-inch Super AMOLED display and a resolution of 1440p. It has a PPI of 570 and an aspect ratio of 18.5 by 9. The front-facing camera for this phone is 8 megapixels. Now, compared to phones that are manufactured today around a similar price point that this phone is currently going for, these specs are pretty good. Around a similar price range to this phone right now, you're most likely going to be getting a more entry-level smartphone that usually has a display around 720p. In addition to that, the front-facing camera for those phones are usually around 5 megapixels, so this is definitely a little bit of an upgrade. Now, this phone has internal storage of 64 gigabytes with microSD card expansion. This is definitely a decent amount of storage compared to brand new phones around the same price point. The more mid-priced entry-level smartphones start around 32 gigabytes of storage, and that's definitely not a lot if you're doing a lot of activities that require data. Sure, if you're using it for basic activities like talking, texting, making phone calls, and maybe running some apps and doing some light internet browsing, then it's not going to really be that big a deal. But if you're taking lots of photos and videos and running larger apps that require more space, then it's definitely going to fill up fast. Now, this phone does have wireless charging, which is a really cool feature, and it also has a fingerprint scanner. Now, while these features are really nice, unfortunately, the placement of this fingerprint scanner is not so nice. I've spoken before about the odd placement of the fingerprint scanner on some of the older Samsung phones like the Note 8, for example, where they put the fingerprint scanner right here, and it made it really easy to accidentally touch the camera, and it's just super inconvenient to reach. Unfortunately, they didn't really make it much better with this phone. Although it's in a slightly more comfortable position to touch, you really have to go out of your way to avoid the camera. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm naturally putting my finger on a fingerprint scanner, I'll usually put my full finger on the fingerprint scanner. And this one is not only really small, but it's also right up against the camera, so it's so easy to touch the camera and get a fingerprint on it. This placement is definitely less than ideal because I would rather get my fingerprint on the scanner than the camera. I definitely think they could have done better with this fingerprint scanner. Let's try it out and see how it performs. It's pretty fast. Let's try it one more time. As you can see, although it's placed in a spot that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, it does work very well. It's really fast and responsive, so at least that's good. And at the end of the day, this phone does have an iris scanner and face unlock, so really the fingerprint scanner doesn't matter a whole lot. If you have that many different options to unlock the phone, then I definitely wouldn't say the make or break whether or not you would buy this phone or not would be the fingerprint scanner. It's just a really weird quirk that is kind of uncomfortable and inconvenient. Now, taking a look at the camera setup here, we only have one rear camera and it is 12 megapixels. It's kind of disappointing that they don't have an ultra-wide camera, but again, this phone was released in the beginning of 2018 and ultra-wide cameras really weren't that much of a thing at that point in time. So just a reminder that although this is a flagship phone that does have a lot of features and a lot of properties that other phones around the certain price that this is going for might not have, it is still an older phone that doesn't have a lot of the features that phones come standard with today, like an ultra-wide camera, for example. So definitely keep that in mind. If those features are important to you, then this might not be the device for you. So taking a look at the camera right now, as you can see, the quality of the image is very good. Again, unfortunately, there is no ultra-wide camera, which is too bad because that's a feature that personally I use really often. But if you don't use that feature and if it doesn't matter to you, then it's definitely not a big deal. Besides features like that, this is definitely a great camera, and if you are primarily using it to take photos and do content creation like that, then this would definitely be a good option. So there are two different sections for the portrait mode. If you want to use the rear camera for it, you're going to be hitting the selective focus button. And then if you want to use the front camera, then you hit the live focus button. I personally think it's a little weird that they did it this way. I was kind of confused myself when I tried it out for the first time, and I don't really know why they made two different portrait modes, especially since it's the same thing. But this is it. The image is actually really good, as you can see. And if you're using this phone to take pictures and do content creation, again, this is definitely a great option. You're going to be getting some high quality photos with it. Just doing a quick test of the video mode of the phone. We are shooting in 4K at 60 frames per second. Also keep in mind the audio quality. Now, as you can see, that was the video mode of this phone. It is able to shoot in 4K at 60 frames per second, which is definitely a feature that a lot of entry-level phones at the price range that this one is currently going for are not going to be able to do. And even if they are able to do it, it's definitely not going to be as good as this phone can. As you can see, the audio quality was very crisp and really good. A lot of the entry level and even some mid-level phones are going to have a lot more fuzzy, distorted audio quality, especially at the higher volumes. But this phone definitely does have great audio quality when you're listening to the playback. Of course, if you're using headphones or a speaker, it doesn't really matter. But it is a nice plus to have a nice phone speaker so you can still consume content without those things. Now internally, we're getting 4 gigabytes of RAM with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 processor. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and it has a single core score of 485 and a multi-core score of 2118. Now this is a very high score, especially compared to the entry-level and mid-range smartphones. You're definitely going to be getting a lot of processing power out of this. This is great if you're doing a lot of content creation, video editing, and more intense things like gaming. This is going to be great. You're going to get a lot of value out of this power. But if you're just using the phone for basic activities like making calls, sending text messages, and maybe doing some browsing and taking some photos, then this might not be as useful to you, and you might not notice the difference as much. I still think that it would be nice to have in certain situations, but at the same time, doing more intense activities that require a lot of processing power is when you're really going to get the value out of this phone. Now this phone has a 3000 milliamp hour battery, which is definitely pretty decent. One thing to keep in mind about this phone, as well as all the other older phones out there, is that this is an older phone, so the battery might not be in the same shape as a brand new phone. Now that we've gone over the specs of the phone, let's take a look at the hardware. So up top, we got the slot for the SIM card and micro SD card, and right here, there's the noise canceling microphone. And then this camera right here, I believe that is the iris scanner. And then the regular front-facing camera is on the left right here. I don't know if you can actually see it through here. And then right here, of course, there's an earpiece. On the bottom, there's a 3.5mm headphone jack, the USB-C charging port, the microphone, and the speaker. And on the left, we have the volume up button, the volume down button, and the Bixby button. Now, I'm definitely not a fan of this button at all. I think it's very unnecessary. There are lots of other ways to access Bixby. I think you can just squeeze it and it'll activate. So there's really not a point in having it. For a lot of people who don't even use Bixby, it's super annoying to accidentally activate it when you're trying to do something else. Now, if you had the option to have it open something else when you pressed it, then that would be a really cool feature that I don't think any other phones have. But unfortunately, since you can't do that and it only opens Bixby, it feels like it's more of a nuisance than anything. On the right here, we have the power button. And then on the back of the phone, there's our camera setup, our fingerprint scanner, and the flash. There's also a Samsung logo right here and Galaxy S9 right at the bottom. All around, the phone is made of very high quality materials. And when you hold it, you can definitely tell it's higher end. I will say though, it definitely does look a little bit dated. You can tell just by looking at it and holding it that it's not the newest phone out there. The bezels are a little bit thick on the top and bottom, and it just makes it feel a little bit older. Especially the design on the back, it really doesn't feel all that 2021 to me. But at the same time, personally, I feel like the functionality is a lot more important than how the phone looks and feels. But if you want a phone that feels newer and looks newer, then this might not be the device for you. The back is made of a glossy material, and as you can see, fingerprints definitely do show up on here. I've seen worse for sure, but I've also seen ones where the fingerprints are pretty unnoticeable, and this is definitely not one of those phones. Now, in conclusion, is this phone worth buying in 2021? For the prices you can get this phone at and the features it offers, I definitely think this phone is still worth buying in 2021. The brand new phones that are made today that you can get around a similar price are definitely not going to offer you the features and the processing power that this phone can. I would say though, it does have some drawbacks. The fingerprint scanner is placed in a really weird location that's not very favorable to the user. And although the camera is really high quality, it lacks some features like an ultra-wide camera, for example, that a lot of newer phones, even the lower level ones, do have. And of course, this phone does run on Android 9 Pie and you can't update it. So if you want the newest version of Android, then that's definitely going to be a problem because this phone is not going to be able to update to it. That being said, if you're looking for a high performance device that can reliably run large apps that require a lot of processing power, do photo and video editing, content creation, lots of content consumption, then this is definitely going to be a great value for you, especially since you're going to get it around the price range of a mid-level or entry-level phone. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.